G'day guys, welcome back to the channel. We are OSOM and we've been travelling Australia full time in our Toyota Land Cruiser Troop carrier for about 9 months now. So for those of you who aren't caught up with what's going on at the moment, we're currently stopped for a little bit at Busselton while we work. Anyway, we've had a lot of questions recently and a lot of them in regards to our honest opinions on our setup, what we've done. So we thought we'd just put together a bit of a video and go through an honest review of the modifications we've done, list of extras we've added, what we like, what we don't like, what works for us, and so on. Now, because I'm working by myself today, I've got my trusty laptop here and I've just got some notes I've written down. So we might start off with the one that we get asked the most, and that is our roof conversion. So we have the Mulgo version 1 fitted, and that is made by Expedition Centre, and we've got ours fitted by Simon Dangerfield at Complete Maintenance Services in Victoria. There are multiple places around the country you can get this fitted. There's some in Western Australia, pretty sure Queensland, New South Wales where they're manufactured, Victoria. I think the only states that aren't doing it at the moment are South Australia, where we're from, and Northern Territory. So any roof conversion like this one does not come cheaply, especially seeing as you're modifying the vehicle. A lot of it goes towards engineering and the R&D that's gone behind the actual product as well. So $13,500 is what this version 1 pop top will set you back. How that stacks up with other ones on the market like the Alley Cab, not too sure about Alley Innovations, but they're around anywhere from the $14,500, $15,000 mark, and I've seen in some places they're charging up to $17,000 to have this fitted. So what do we like about it? So for $13,500, it's Australian made, number one. That was a big tick for us, and all the parts are sourced locally. So if you have any issues with it whatsoever, parts are readily available and you're just a phone call away if you have any issues with it. So that was a big tick for us. We have seen with other models like Alley Cab, people have broken latches, things like that, and they're waiting months to get these things fixed, and having such a backlog of these products just isn't time efficient. So one of the big pluses for us with the conversion is the fact that it's got internal latches. So inside here we have internal latches which will latch the roof down, and that's just a security factor. So again, a lot of the competitors will have external latches being up on this section here, which means anybody can break into your car. All they have to do is flick the latch, pop the roof up, and they're in your car, which doesn't give you much peace of mind. Internal latches, they actually cannot pop that roof up. If you've got it latched from inside, they cannot pop that roof up, okay? So that was a big plus for us, knowing that we could leave the car, we could walk around, go wherever we want, and not have the fear of someone breaking into our car and stealing the thousands of dollars of equipment that we have inside. And also, the amount of theft of these vehicles is astronomical. So they are a very sought after vehicle. So making sure that that was secure was a big thing for us as well. Another thing we like about this conversion is that it has full length windows. So that means it's going from the bottom right to the top. A lot of the other ones only have sort of half of that sort of size. So this is great. Being able to stand up in the back and to see 180 degrees out everywhere is just amazing, especially when you're parking up in these beautiful spots on beaches and all these sort of things. You want to be able to see out, don't you? So that was a big plus for us. Some things people get a little bit worried about, and it's a bit of a topic of conversation, is the canvas colour. As you've probably noticed from our videos, and as you can see now, the canvas is quite a light colour compared to competitors on the market where they've got more of a block out sort of effect. Now, people ask if this is a problem in terms of heat transfer, light, all those sort of things. Yes and no. Granted, other options have the block out effect, which is great for when you want to have after a nap or anything like that, and just reducing the amount of sunlight that's going to be getting into your car. But on the same time, how often are you actually going to be doing that? It comes down to what you guys want to do. We spend the majority of our time outside of the car, so having that light come in is not really a problem for us. The only time it's ever been a problem is when we've actually been, let's say, in a caravan park and we've got a street lamp or something right next to us. You will get that light come through, but again, weigh up how often that is going to happen. So the canvas is actually, I think it's called AirTex or AirTech or something like that. It's a very breathable fabric. It's got a very quick drying time, so when this is up in rain and it gets saturated, this is dry within half an hour again. You can pack it away, put your roof down, and it's not going to wet your bedding and all that sort of thing. With other ones where they've got the block out traditional canvas, once that gets to a point where it's super saturated, that is a bugger to dry out and it just stays wet for a long time. So we've heard gripes from many other people saying that when they put their roof down, all their bedding's wet, and trying to dry that canvas out can take days sometimes, especially if you don't have the weather. So the breathability of this canvas, I'll take that any day. Right, so another major difference with this conversion is the length of the bed. With Alley Cab, Alley Innovations, the design of the bed, as you may have seen, is basically a two-stage system. So you have a 3/4 or 2/3 length bed, and then you have the remainder of the bed which will flip upwards towards this back window. So you're in two sections, one goes up, one goes down that way, and then they come together in the middle. The Mulgo doesn't have that extra section, so you've got basically 45 centimeters, 50 centimeters gap between the bed and back of the car, and that is your bed. Now, I'm not a small bloke, I'm just 6 foot, and realistically, not a problem for us. I can sleep comfortably. My feet, if I really stretch, are only just touching the end of the bed, so it's not an issue for us having that little bit less length. The bed comes with a 70mm mattress, and again, not the most comfortable mattress, but it's the exact same mattress you're going to get with any of these conversions. They try to keep the mattress quite thin so that you can put the bed down with your belongings in it. So you can leave your quilt up there, you can leave your pillows up there. If you went any thicker, you wouldn't be able to close the roof. There is different options. Mulgo offer something called a fanflow bed, which is basically 2-stage wooden slats, and it just means that it's a lot more comfortable, and if you roll around in the middle of the night, your partner or whoever you're sleeping next to isn't going to feel that when you roll around, because they're basically separate to each other. That's an $850 extra add-on, but from everyone I've spoken to, that is money well spent. That's one thing that we wish we would have done. But I mean, we're both pretty heavy sleepers and we haven't had too many issues at all with it. The only thing we might end up doing is getting a bit of a mattress topper. So what's $50-$60 from Target, get yourself a mattress topper or Clark rubber, bit of an eggshell, something like that. That will just give you a little bit more cushioning if you like. How this performs in weather, I was very skeptical about this, and there's one reason we went with something like this as opposed to traditional van type pop-up where it goes all up in one, is you can direct this into the inclement weather that's coming in if you're in storms or whatever, which we have had this in many storms. So we're at New South Wales for a week when they're having those extremely wet, windy storms. We had 90-kilometre winds and this thing did not falter at all. Sure, the canvas flaps around a little bit, but what do you expect for it? So, the canvas has slightly, not saying sagged, but not as taut as it was when we first got it. And again, that comes down to how the canvas is attached. So, along the bottom and the top is all attached via Velcro, very strong Velcro, but that is going to shift over time, and especially when you've got it up in very windy conditions. So, if you want to tighten that back up, it's a matter of pulling off the press studs, dragging down the Velcro and just retightening it back up. For us, not a big issue, and as you can see, it's still very, very solid. So the total weight of this conversion is 80 kilos, and again, that is lighter than competitors. So I think Alley Cab and similar ones are around the 115, 116 kilo mark. This comes in 80 kilos, so you're saving yourself 36 kilos there. Now, in terms of if it's added weight to the car, we had the traditional very heavy ARB steel rack, and by the time we've cut the roof off, taken that rack off, we've actually saved ourselves weight because that rack itself was almost 80 kilos. It's also got a lower center of gravity, so in terms of how tall the roof is when it's closed, it is much smaller than the competitors, so you're reducing your center of gravity, better fuel efficiency, your car's not as high, so I think with our solar panel attached we are 2.23 meters, don't quote me, I'm just trying off the top of my head, which is 10, 20 centimeters, probably 10 centimeters smaller than competitors. Now, on top of the roof, there is basically roof rail tracks that come along, and they are super handy for strapping down whatever you want. Another reason we went with this is the weight that you can put onto this roof. We can easily put on 100 kilos or more on the roof, so I can easily stand, walk around on the roof. I'll get up there, strap my surfboard down, stand on the roof, sit on the roof if I want to have a beer. So being able to walk around on that roof and basically put whatever I want up there without compromising it is really good. Just make sure you probably keep that weight towards the front. It's going to be easier to push that roof up as well, seeing as the gas struts you and you're pushing from the back. Some of the other ones you can only load about 50 kilos on, so that was an added benefit as well. Now we're going to talk about some of the things that we don't like about the roof conversion. First one, it's not a huge issue and it's easy to overcome, which we have, is the lighting. Now we do love the reading lights. It's got two reading lights positioned either side of the bed, which are perfect, and they also have inbuilt USB chargers, which is so handy. So have our phones charging, iPad, whatever we've got there, without having to install extra USB points. Trying to wire that stuff up through into the roof is a pain. Try run any of your wiring. You can talk to whoever your installer is and they can run extra wiring if you want, and it just makes it a whole lot easier. There is a second LED light which sits on the roof, which will basically shine down on you when you're in bed. For us, that just seems a little bit pointless. You've got reading lights up the top there already, and there's no real need for an LED light up there as well. That light would have been much better put on the underside of the bed, so that when the bed is up, you can light up the whole cabin without having to install extra lights, which we have ended up having to do. But again, only a small gripe. Now, one thing the Mulgo doesn't have compared to other ones is the rain guard. So a lot of the other ones you'll see have a sort of a back awning attached to the conversion. So if this is up in rain, yes, it's going to dry out quickly, but if you want any sort of airflow or anything like that coming in, you can't, because you're going to get rain come on through the fly screen. Whereas if you have the shade or anything like that, it's going to keep that sun off a little bit and also keep the weather out. It is another thing you have to worry about when you're packing it up, but having not had one before, I mean, I like the idea of it, but I don't know, might speak to some other people who have it and don't like it. The next one is a positive and a negative, however you want to see it. For me, it's more of a negative, but it depends how conscious you are about security. So as we mentioned, it's got internal latches, so the car cannot be broken into. Alucab and versions such as those, the windows will actually come all the way down, so you'll be able to undo the canvas and then you'll be able to undo the fly screen, and you can have direct access to outside the car. Okay? Mulgo doesn't have that. You can pull the canvas down, but you can't pull the fly screen down. The fly screen is actually stitched into the canvas. So where that annoys me is I religiously, probably 12 o'clock at night, 1 o'clock at night, I have to go to the toilet. So to do that, I have to wake the dogs up down the bottom and get out the car that way, and it's just a bit of a pain. Being able to have a side access would be fantastic. You could easily just step out the side and do a wee. You don't even have to get out the car. So yeah, small thing, wish that could happen, but then again, security, people can get in if you leave your car unattended, I guess. Now when we're putting the roof down, there's one thing I like about other options on the market which make it so easy to put it down, especially when you're doing it by yourself, is they have a string around the canvas, so as you pull down, it pulls the canvas in together. I'll show you a video of basically when we put the pop top down. It's a bit of a two-stage step, and it can be a little bit awkward. So you pull down from the inside because it doesn't have handles on the outside, which to be honest I don't think you'd really want it, but you could install them if you want. So you basically have to pull the roof down halfway, stop at that point, and then you'll have to step out the car, tuck either side in, and then shut it externally. So for me, not much of an issue. I'm definitely strong enough to be able to do that and coordinate enough. For some people, especially traveling by yourself, I can understand how that could be an issue for you. But like I said, there is ways to get around it, and it's not that hard if you want to get some bungee cord to install one of those yourselves, which we might actually do. One of the last things we're going to talk about is the aesthetics of it as well. So I think they look fantastic. If I had my time again, I would probably choose the version 2 that Mulgo do. It just basically means that you get a colour-coded roof and you get a fiberglass or plastic outer, whichever one it has. It does end up costing you, what is it, $1,250 extra. So you're paying almost $15,000 for the version 2 just to have the colour code. So whether or not you want it to look that aesthetically pleasing, we don't think ours is ugly at all, but obviously the version 2, in my opinion, does look better than the version 1. Both the exact same though in terms of their inclusions. So yeah, way up. We didn't do it at the time because we thought $13,500 on a roof was stretching the budget as it was, but so glad we did it. Had our time again, probably would have picked version 2. Now, moving on to probably the next biggest topic of discussion would be our awning, our 270 awning. So we went with the brand 30-second awning. This is for a few reasons, main one being price point. As you know, they vary everywhere from your cheap King's ones from a couple $100 up to something like a Bush company that might set you back to $2,500. Obviously quality is going to vary immensely with all those options, so we opted for somewhere in the middle ground that was going to give us something durable enough to travel Australia for this year, 18 months, but also not break the bank, because we had a lot of different modifications we wanted to do, and if we went for the best and best of everything, we would just have no money left to travel. So what do we actually like about this awning, and why did we pick it? So the awning is freestanding, which is probably one of the biggest things that we were looking for. So my brother's recently installed one that isn't freestanding. Whilst when they're up, they do very similar and they perform very similar. The actual act of putting them out and packing them up is so much more complicated. With the freestanding one like this one, it does take a couple seconds to clip it out and you are done. No poles, you don't have stuff swinging everywhere. It's just super simple to operate, and I can do it by myself, which I do most of the time. I can also pack it away by myself, which is a big one. So it makes packing up easy, and also makes for less arguments. So that's well worth the money in my books. So it does consist of quite light alloy arms. You can put a fair bit of weight on them, and they will stand, I think it's 30-kilometre winds. But at the same time, it is alloy. It is not the strongest metal there is, but it is light and it does do the job. In terms of the support, what you're looking for is this section here, which is going to be probably the strongest section. The backing plate's alloy, but the actual back of it there is proper steel, which is good. So we've had this awning on for almost 2 years now. So it's well and truly stood the test of time, and considering this is something that we'll put up pretty much the same amount of time as we put the roof up. So we will have this out almost every single day. Even if it's not sunny, if it's not rainy, we just like having it out. Having that awning out just creates that living space that you have, makes it feel a little bit more like home. So yeah, it's been out every single day, and as you can see, it's still holding up perfectly. There is a slight bit of canvas sag, which is going to happen, especially with some of the conditions that we've had this awning up in. So yeah, now it does have a middle support, which I will go through and show you guys in a second, but that will basically put the canvas up in the top there and allow the water to drain off, hopefully. Now that does work to an extent. Where it does fail is basically in between the arms, because it's so taut in between the arms at the end and not so much back here. You'll get water pooling about here and not running off. So you can fix that by using your tie down points, and which is what we do when it's raining. We'll tie down the middle so then it will channel off. Otherwise you'll just end up with big pools of water in the middle, and when you start thinking about how much weight you're putting onto the awning, you can put up to probably 80 kilos or 60 kilos on that awning just with water if you don't do that. But from what I've seen, that's pretty consistent with most other awnings on the market. When it's raining, when it's windy, anything like that, take them down, put your poles down. They're not miracle devices. If you're essentially putting up a massive shade sail on the car, and if you think that that thing's going to be able to handle 50-60 kilometre winds and not fold over on itself, then you probably deserve it, to be honest. Now, another thing I don't like about this awning is where it's stitched. So the canvas is stitched to the arms at one point only, and it's only about a 20 centimetre stitch along there. Now that it does hold, what I would like to have seen is probably another one or a longer one back towards the back here, because that's where a lot of the flapping is coming from when you're in windy conditions, because you've got essentially 40-50% of the awning that's not attached to anything apart from at the back here. So possibly another stitching point wouldn't go astray. Now, quick disclaimer, we did not buy these awning walls. We were gifted these by the company in return for some promotional advertising. So honest review of them, we do love them. Obviously, again, it's not one of those things that you're going to be putting up every day. It's not one of those things that you want to be putting up when you've got wind bashing into them, because that's going to be putting so much stress on the awning. They're not designed to be doing that. So we've never ever put them up at the beach, and I don't think we ever will. We only generally put them up probably if we're staying somewhere for more than 2 days, but that is more so because we're lazy. They're actually quite easy to put on. They literally just zip along the side, zip together at the meeting point, and then you peg them down. They've also got a probably 10 centimetre section of extra canvas down the bottom that's designed to sit on the floor that you can weigh down with sand, rocks, whatever you want to do, and just make sure that it does not fly away or flap away. But yeah, they fold up really neatly, and they don't take up much room at all. So yeah, I actually really like them. They are $210 each last time I checked. Now, whether it's worth the money or not, it's completely up to you. Personally, I probably wouldn't have paid for them myself, but that's purely because out of how much use that we'd get out of them. If you're someone that is staying somewhere for a long period of time constantly, and you can see the use in putting them up, then you can probably warrant that money. For us, we're moving quite often, and it wasn't really something that we would have considered unless we were gifted them. But yeah, not a bad product at all, just probably wouldn't buy them myself. So I've actually had this question a lot from a lot of friends. So in terms of power, we run a lithium battery, which is 150 amp hour. Now that is ample for us. We have 110 watts of solar on the roof, and we also have a 165 watt fold out panel. We did have a 120 amp hour battery to begin with. So the brand that we have now and the first one we had are both Solar King. The first battery we got, we had issues from the start, and we ended up getting that battery refunded, but it was a massive process. That wasn't because of Solar King, that was because of the third party company we bought it from. Were really hard to deal with. So we actually bought a second Solar King battery from Battery World and Gawler, which have been fantastic to deal with. They've honestly fantastic. So the first battery had a problem with the BMS system, which is the battery management system that sits in the top of the battery. That was faulty, so basically battery was just all over the shop and just not holding charge. So yeah, I've got a small spreadsheet running that will calculate our battery usage and our charge discharge over 48 hours. So we can basically look at when we need to charge our battery based on the appliances that we run. Generally we'll get 3.5 days out of our battery with the 110 watts on the roof that is constantly sitting there before we need to start looking at either turn the car on to charge up or rolling out the 165 watt panel. Now we went lithium for a few options. You can drain the battery down very low, unlike a typical AGM where you cannot do that without damaging the battery. A lithium, yes, they're around 3 times, 4 times the price of an AGM, but you also get 3-4 times as long out of them. So Solar King guarantee 2,000 cycles of charge discharge, which is 6.5 years, give or take. But that's what they guarantee. It can be longer than that, and we've had this battery in for 18 months now and cannot fault it. It's been fantastic. There's also some other ones on the market. iTech World is supposed to be quite good. Just depends on what you want to pay. But 100% recommend lithium. If you're only going to be traveling for a short amount of time, or it's just your weekend car, probably maybe stick with something cheaper like an AGM. But for us, traveling full time, no questions asked. We need that power, and without power, you're not buggered, but pretty uncomfortable. Alright, now, what would we do differently, and what do and don't we like about how we've done our setup? So, the fixed panel and a flexible panel, what do we like solar panel wise? If we're out of time again, our fixed panel on the roof is mounted currently east-west, and we would probably mount it north-south in the future. The reason for that is in terms of stacking things. So we've got two surfboards, both around the 6'6" mark. Now they just fit on the roof. If we wanted, or if you had something like a longboard, something around the 8 foot, 9 foot mark, you just wouldn't fit it on the roof with the orientation of the solar panel. So take that into account when you do it. But for us, probably wasn't a huge issue. But yeah, it would be nice to have that extra room. Again, I would not buy the fold out solar panel we have. So we have a 165 watt fold out, they're basically 3 fixed panels in an alloy frame. Quite heavy, like you're looking, I'm assuming 15 kilo for the actual unit itself. It is very reliable, so it does come with a 25-year warranty, but we just don't drag it out purely because it is a pain. So having something and spending a little bit extra, so I think we paid $500 for that, having something like a flexible fold-out panel, you only get about 3 years warranty on them, but they are so much more convenient, they take up so much less space, and they weigh a couple kilo at the most. So if we had our time again, we would definitely invest in a flexible solar panel, or the solar blanket type, as opposed to the big fixed bulky one. I might put some pictures up in a second of what our big one basically looks like, but again, you have the room and you don't care, go for it. For us, probably not. Our rear fit out. If you followed us previously, or you've been around here for a while, you may have seen what our old fit out looked like before we got the roof conversion. Probably a bit prettier than what this one looks like at the moment, but this one is a lot more practical. So when we did the conversion, in order for them to do the conversion, they need proper access to the car. So we had to pull all of our fit out of the car, which also prompted us to rethink how we did our design. Our first fit out had a lot of wasted space, dead corners, all those sort of things. So it was a blessing in disguise that we could actually have that chance to rethink our fit out through and redo it again. Now, trying to reduce our footprint as much as possible, we try to use as much of the timber and fittings, runners, everything like that we could out of the old fit out. So basically this whole left hand side here, behind the driver's seat and where the fridge is all utilising the timber from the previous fit out. We really just wanted to minimise our wastage. So some things might not look as pretty as they should be, but we didn't really want to be spending money go buying new things, and we really didn't want to be just buying timber for no reason and throwing out all the old stuff. The right hand side of this fit out was all done from brand new timber though, and was built as a modular unit. So much to Taylor's disgrace, I spent probably 2 months working on it on weekends and stuff like that, in the middle of our dining room. So that was built inside the house. So this was very well thought out, this unit. We included our sink in there. Everything's plumbed up with running water. We've got a designated section. We measured everything that we wanted to have in terms of our clothes baskets, dog food containers, coffee machines. Everything was built to the exact size that we would need it, so there would be no wasted space. We even did our beer drawer big enough just to take the beer can size. So everything was built so that we could maximize our space, and as a result we have no need to put anything on the roof. Now, The problem that I do have with it is I probably went a little bit too big. So as you can see, it's quite a narrow area, and it's quite tall as well. Now, while that's good, it's also, I would have gone a little bit smaller, so I would have liked to maybe knock off another 5 centimeters or so, top, and probably 10 centimeters on the top and 5 centimeters on the side, and just make that a little bit smaller and make it a little bit more comfortable inside, and then put something like a storage box on the roof for things that we aren't going to use very often. So stuff like our camp oven, snorkel gear, wetsuits, anything like that could go on the roof. So if we had our time again, that's one change that we would make, especially when you're trying to do the internal latches on the Mulgo. So internal latches sit just above the sink. This one here is very easy to do. You can probably see that from here. The other side, by the time you get the roof down, trying to get your hands in over this is a nightmare. So that would have made doing that a little bit easier as well. Other than that, other things we love is obviously our Maxtrax table. Some people love them, some people hate them. We personally love it. We barely use our other table at all, just because there's no need to. We'll use it for playing games and stuff like that, but all our food preparation, anything, is done on the Maxtrax table. That's made by Expedition Centre, which is the same company that does the roof conversion, if you remember. So yeah, absolutely love it. Good bit of kit. You don't really want to put your whole weight on it, because basically you drill through the side of the car and all that you're anchoring to is sheet metal, really. So I don't think it's really going to matter on the build quality, or it is going to matter on the build quality, but ultimately it's back on the car, so you don't really want to hang your whole weight off of it. So, but why would you want to? Re-roll dough out where you bang a couple, like 40 kilo on it, no problems whatsoever. Invaluable piece of equipment. The Maxtrax there, whether we need them, and we absolutely love it. Anyway, we hope this video has cleared up some of our opinions, bit of an honest review on what we fitted out. If you're in the process of building your own troop carrier or van or anything like that, we hope this has given you some maybe inspiration, do's and don'ts, or if you're sitting on the fence with different conversions. This might give you some pros and cons. If there's anything else that you guys want to ask, drop a comment below, message us on Instagram, anything like that. If there's enough interest, we'll do another video on it. But yeah, I hope you got something out of this video, and we'll see you next time.